All right. Well, good morning, everyone. This is Ha with Happy Strong You and with Maggie Moo, correct?
Yes.
This morning. And looks like we don't have anyone on yet, but that's fine. We'll keep going now. Maggie, I haven't really actually met you yet. So, which is kind of cool. That's actually when I started this live chat, it was maybe about close to a couple months ago when the quarantine started. And I say, well, we probably need to at least get some sort of social interaction because that's something that will be lacking during these times. So I appreciate you jumping on. Apoku, actually, good morning, Apoku. He actually connected with me with you to get you on. So I appreciate you, Apoku. So let's get going a little bit. Maggie, tell us about first off, is that your real name, Maggie Moo? Because we have an ice cream parlor named Maggie Moo in Oklahoma City.
I think at this point it might as well be. It's just like the longest standing nickname that I've had ever. So I have like family members call me Maggie Moo. Some of my students call me Maggie Moo. So it's just kind of took off. It's actually not based on the ice cream. My dad was obsessed with the movie Do the Right Thing, and there's a character in there named Mookie, and he started calling me Maggie Moo, and it kind of stuck.
Okay. So let's go ahead. Maggie Moo, let's stick with that. Tell us your age, belt level, belt under, and school location.
Okay, so I am 33. I've been training for, God, every time I do this, I'm like, how long has it been? I guess about 6.5 years. I'm a purple belt. I train at two places, actually. I train at Torres Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with my fiance, and I train at Team Took with Travis Took. Okay.
And how's that been going for you guys right now? Are you guys open or?
Well, no, I've been getting a lot of private lessons with black belt. That's kind of the positive. Texas is kind of on a tiered schedule, so they're slowly reopening. On May 18th, a lot of gyms are going to reopen, but they have to reopen with like very specific social distancing practices. You have to be able to have 6 feet in between people. It's going to end up being like a lot of solo drills and things like that, although people will be able to drill with family members, people that live in their own household, things like that, and kind of stick with those partners. So we're kind of lucky to be able to do that. And I think at this point, everybody's kind of dying to get back to jiu-jitsu. I think that's really why that grappling dummy challenge took off. I think because everyone's just like, I need some jiu-jitsu, I need something. So May 18th, both of those schools are reopening with just kind of some social distancing rules in place.
Okay, well, good. I bet you guys are eager to get back, just like everyone else. So you have a newborn, correct? Yes. How is that been? Or when did you? So tell us about when did you? Is it a son, daughter?
Okay. Yeah, he was born February 28th. So kind of right before like the peak of all the coronavirus stuff got crazy. So I'm pretty lucky with that. He's almost 3 months old. So that's been. It's the positive of the coronavirus, I suppose, is that we've both been able to be home, and that probably wouldn't be the case otherwise. So the first 3 months of his life, he's had both of us, which is great. He's kind of just come to the gym with me when we're doing individual training, and he'll just sit there and stare at us on the side of the mat. And so he's still very agreeable and still willing to kind of sit there and be calm while we're training. So it's awesome. I'm not sleeping. I'm sure you can see these big bags under my eyes. I actually just rolled out of bed maybe like 15 minutes ago, and I was like, I have to do an interview this morning. I was like,
I was getting worried a little bit. I was like, oh, I haven't heard back. So I was like, well, you have a newborn, so we'll give you the Brazilian time.
I'm on
right here.
Schedule at the moment.
Excellent. So Apoku has a question. Tell us about what it's like to train in South Korea.
Oh, I loved it. I started training in South Korea. I really missed it. I started training with Chris Kim. He's a black belt there under Atos. And it was initially on a military base. So that was kind of interesting. I'm not in the military, so I'd have to get like signed on regularly to go train with them. I love it. It's very different than any game that I play. I'm not a lightweight. I never have been a lightweight. I fluctuate between medium, heavy, and heavy probably most of the time. So there was a lot of spider guard and a lot of kind of like De La Hiva, a lot of single X guard, a lot of attention to like really, really small details that if I hadn't started with him, I probably wouldn't have, because sometimes even now I'll be rolling with people and I'm like, okay, I'm doing spider guard. And they're like, there's this heavyweight playing spider guard. And so it was amazing. I think it made me more well-rounded. I think it gave me more of a little person's game, which I probably wouldn't have had otherwise, because I love crushing people. I come from a rugby background, so
yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
But training was nice. Everybody kind of just trains together. There was a lot of cross training. It didn't really matter if there was a language barrier. Jiu-Jitsu seems to kind of bridge that gap. So you'd be training with somebody who might speak, we have a lot of international people. So you might be training with somebody who speaks Korean. You might know what they're saying. You might not. You shake hands, you bump fists. You might be training with somebody from Japan. It could be kind of anyone. It was just really international. It was really multicultural, and it was awesome to get so many different styles of jiu-jitsu in one room. So I loved it.
That's awesome. I actually been to South Korea, maybe just for a brief stint as we're passing by, maybe about 2 years ago or something like that. But it was a cool place. So the markets out there, we went to go visit all the little shopping markets, food markets. That's pretty cool. We didn't have time to check out gyms out there because it was like foreign language. So we didn't know which gym would speak English. So, but yeah.
Most of them do, which is nice. But if they don't, I will say I've gone to instruction that was completely in Korean before I understood Korean, and they were like, it was really easy to understand. There's something about being a kinesthetic learner, I think, and them kind of walking you through it, and it was nice.
One of the good things, I talk about spider guard. So we have a really, my black belt coach, Jenny Meadows, here in Edmond, Oklahoma. I love you, girl, if you're watching. She is like one of my lifetime training partners, and she would do in a gi is spider guard. And so because of her, I was able to be familiarized with playing with spider guard game and stuff. And so she made me a better BJ as far as jiu-jitsu practitioner because of it, because I'm like, not everyone plays spider guard. And so knowing how to break grips and pass and all that stuff, and it's just insane. But yeah, if you ever get a chance to play with anyone spider guard, definitely it would change your perspective on the jiu-jitsu game for sure on that. So and even if anyone who does a lot spider guard and also berimbolo. So
that's the one thing I'm not doing in my heavyweight life is berimbolo. It's very easy to me. Maybe on small children.
No, I'm saying like if someone else does it to you, you're like, oh yeah. Okay, yeah. So cool. We have Apoku's he's like the $1 million question guy. He comes on and he shoots a bunch of questions on here. I might have to limit you every now and then, depending on who jumps on. You played rugby in college. Tell us how you transitioned to BJJ.
I played rugby since I was a kid, and so transitioning jiu-jitsu was sloppy. I had a training partner named Natalie who trains in Korea, Natalie Holloman. She's amazing. She kept asking me to try it. She's like, try it, you'll like it. And I'm like, nah, I'm not interested in doing it. And she's like, she kind of used some reverse psychology, and she was like, you're right, you wouldn't be very good at it. And I'm like, what? So I ended up trying it. And I liked it because I was immediately bad at it. And which is kind of different. Like every other sport I'd ever played in my life, I was good at it. I picked it up. I picked up basketball. I was good at that. I picked up rugby. I was good at that. Actually, that's a lie. I was terrible at soccer. I didn't even most sports came pretty easy to me. I was like, oh, I'm so athletic. And then I tried jiu-jitsu and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where my hands are going. I was exceedingly awful for probably 6 months. So much so that at a promotion ceremony, my black belt at the time, Chris Kim, was kind of giving a speech, and he was like, and this next girl, who I did not think she was ever going to get it. She was so bad. And he's like giving this, and I'm like, is this really a promotion? Like, what's up? He's giving the speech like, man, like, when I say bad, like really bad. I was clumsy and uncoordinated. And I think honestly that technique, that like spider guard, that little person's game, like once I realized I can't blow through these people, like I had a training partner who was maybe like 5'2". I had so many tiny little training partners and I couldn't pass their guard. I couldn't do anything. They would just like put me on my back and I was like, okay, I've got to figure this out somehow. I have to learn something. Like in rugby, you can just kind of blow through people. And that's what I liked. You get to hit people, you get to rush over people. And jiu-jitsu was so much more refined. Like there are a lot of similarities in the sense, I guess, in rugby, you need a lot of core strength. And I think that you do in jiu-jitsu too. So I kind of started to realize like, okay, take the positives, take the things that you know how to do well in rugby and apply them. But you just need to be a lot more patient in jiu-jitsu. And so I definitely get why people say it's sort of a chess match. And I think I spent a little too much time being awful at it because I was just obsessed with trying to be like explosive. I'm sure I was the spazziest of all spazzy white belts that ever existed.
So tell us how your game has evolved from a white belt to when you start training South Korea till now. Game style when you started with, and what's your...
Okay, I've always kept, I think I've always kept the like spider guard. It's still a huge part of my game, but I think every single professor that I've trained with, because I've moved so much, has kind of added something to it. I worked with Ben Eaton in Virginia, and he had me really like kind of work a lot on like just like being more dynamic. So with him, I think I opened up my game a lot more. I started working on ankle locks and things like that. And that became kind of a regular part of my repertoire. I love like foot attacks now. It's probably one of my favorite things ever. I had so many different types of training partners there also, because that's a military place. So you kind of get people who are there regularly and then you get people who are transient. So I was just exposed to so many different types of people. So I kind of worked those in. And then I came to Texas and I got to train with Travis Took, and he's probably just like one of the best black belts ever. And I started working a lot on pressure and a lot on passing. And then I live with probably somebody who I would say is also one of the most talented black belts, with Michael Torres. And he's big. We're both kind of heavyweights. He's a big guy, but he has this little person's game and he's so technical, and everything that he does matters, every grip, every things that I hadn't really considered. So I think my game has evolved kind of based on the people I trained with. It's sort of a tribute to every black belt that I've ever had. I've taken like little pieces of things that they've taught me. Some things I will just never be good at. I'm not berimboloing anybody. Half guard's kind of trash at the moment. I'll work on that a little bit, but I think it's just become more open.
Yeah, that's pretty cool though. But yeah, as far as that's cool that you're able to open your game up to be, because not very many people can play the spider game, spider guard. So that's pretty cool that you're able to pick that up. I don't play the spider guard games. I just have my training partner working on me while I'm trying to get out of it. So I'm always feel like I'm in the web all the time, getting attacked and killed. So we have Erin Johnston. Thank you. She had no questions, but thank you for being so fun and positive all the time. Thank you, Erin. Thank you for jumping on. Let's see. Your brother from another mother says, when you won Worlds, can you tell us about the training camp and how do you balance work and training?
It was actually Pan Am's. Worlds is still on my list. It's like it's just that one's a sore spot for me. We'll talk about that in a second. But
Worlds is like a completely animal than Pans.
Yeah. Pan Am's. My regimen for that really was just honestly just training as much as possible. Like I wasn't on a super strict diet or anything. I was like relatively portioned, like kind of counting portions, but I was training twice a day. I was doing some strength and conditioning. I think for me, the biggest component of it was mental. I lost my dad right before Pan Am's. And so that had been kind of a big thing with us. My dad was pretty invested in my martial arts journey. And he kind of asked me, the last time I talked to him, we talked about some goals and things. And I said I wanted to win Pan Am's. So it kind of became this thing that I was obsessed with. I was like, well, I told my dad that I was going to do it, so I have to do it. I don't think it was even like training. I think it was just this obsession. Like, okay, well, I promised him I was going to do it, so I'm going to do it. And so I
What
just,
year was this?
that was in 2018.
Okay.
So just like I became obsessed with it, just training as much as possible. From every position, I tell my training partners, put me in the worst possible position, make sure that I can get out of this. I would put myself in the worst places that I could potentially be in just to kind of prove that I could survive and get out. I don't necessarily think it's the most effective type of training, but it kind of, it distracted me. I think it kept me on the mat. But yeah, I can't even put that down to like training regimen. I think that was like 100% stubbornness. I was like, I promised that I was going to do that. So I did. And then after I won, it was kind of like unbelievable, but I was like, okay, well, I did this thing that I promised him that I was going to do. And so,
Where when did you start training for the pans?
honestly, probably like 8 months out. Because for me, I know some people drop weight really easily.
Mhm.
If I'm running or if I'm lifting, I drop weight pretty easily, but I knew I wasn't doing that. So I was kind of just trying to like eat better. So I started training about 8 months out. And then before Pan Am's, this was horrible. I actually had a reaction to a medicine that I'd been on forever. And I ended up gaining about 13 pounds in a few days just before Pan Am's, and then having to cut
Wow.
15 pounds 5 days before Pan Am's. And it was the most miserable experience.
Wow.
I was hungry and I was motivated at that point. I was like, there's no way I
Yeah.
can get all this. I'm not coming out here to lose.
That's awesome. That's that's just a warrior being able to rise
Right.
among all the craziness that you're going through. Yeah, as far as sorry about you losing your father. So, if you don't mind, how did he pass away?
He had I guess it was kind of a heart condition that we weren't really aware of. It's a hardening of the arteries. And the thing that's kind of frustrating about it is that it is typically something that can be handled with medicine, like pretty easily. But my dad was very much like, don't want to go to the doctor. Probably one of the most stubborn people I've ever met. Seemingly healthy otherwise, but he kind of took sort of a decline those last few months. And if he had been on medicine, honestly, he might still be here. So it's sort of kind of bittersweet.
Yeah. Something that also back in 2015 also won Pans, but before that, my grandfather-in-law passed away like 2 weeks before that. And then I think 2 weeks or a month before that, our plane ticket was canceled. And so we're like, maybe I shouldn't be going. So there's like, some obstacles that some champions face before, all that happens. So it's just, sometimes we have to overcome the craziness just to get to that point. So kudos to you. Let's see now, other than Pans, what other big tournaments have you competed in, and how did you do?
I pretty regularly do the Houston Open here, and my goal was to win that at every belt level, and so far I've got that at blue and purple. So when I get my brown belt, that's the hope. I would say locally though, for my weight class, I actually don't have a ton of competition. So with heavyweights, it's kind of, you either end up with lots of people in super heavy or you end up with everybody below medium heavy. So there's not a ton in between here. So I either kind of am like, all right, so I'm either going to have to go up to super heavy or I'm going to have to cut back down. So that's kind of where I am now. But I've done the Houston Open. I've done the New York Open. Basically just any little open that I can do. Pan Am's every year. My first Master Worlds was a hot mess, but that's probably my favorite tournament I've ever done. I came out and I'm like, oh, first round, I won. I got an arm bar in like 20 seconds. This is great. Second round, I'm just surviving. Like, I've suddenly forgot how to use my hands. I'm being mounted and I don't even know how to escape. What do you do with the hand? What do you do with the foot? So I have a little bit of like a vendetta with Master Worlds. And
I think we were just talking about Masters World yesterday with Professor Melissa Lowson and how great an environment and tournament is. So yeah, if anyone gets to go, definitely go to the Master Worlds for sure.
I feel like if you can compete there, you can compete anywhere. For some reason, that was by far the most intimidating competition I've ever done. It was just massive. And I think I thought that I was like, oh, well, when I get to masters, it's going to be a little bit easier. It didn't get easier. In fact, everybody was just so much more technical. It was like, this is not easier. This is horrible. I've been lied to. So the women that I met in the master's division are just savages. Like, they're all like, they're moms. And I kind of started to understand that. I'm like, oh, you know what it's like to have no sleep and to take care of multiple crying children and be training. And like, I have a lot of respect for the women in that division, because I will say they're by far the toughest opponents I've ever had.
I would agree with that for sure. Question from Opoku: How did Caro get his name?
Cairo. Okay. Well, my dad was Muslim. Cairo means victorious in Arabic, and so we had some complications. I was initially told that I wouldn't be able to have kids. So the fact that I was even able to like get pregnant was kind of a big deal. And then I had a high risk pregnancy because I have in my family, a lot of the women have this like end up with preeclampsia, which is a pretty kind of serious disease. So it was considered high risk. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to carry to term. They were telling me I needed to be like very careful about a lot of things, and I was still training jiu-jitsu, and we were kind of talking about it. I was like, well, he keeps like continually beating all of these odds and these sort of milestones and things like that. And so Cairo, victorious one, kind of just seemed like an appropriate name. So
that's a cool name. I love it.
Yeah, and we wanted to honor my dad a little bit, so it's Cairo Toussaint Torres, because Toussaint was my dad's name. So.
Oh, and you recently got engaged?
Yes. Yeah.
Congratulations. How long you guys been dating?
Forever. No, probably about 6 years.
Okay, congratulations on that for sure.
Yeah.
Did you guys meet on the mats, or how'd you guys meet?
Yeah, we met in South Korea actually at a jiu-jitsu tournament, and I hated him. So it's kind of funny now. He had a friend who was a narcoleptic bomb maker who was probably like 6'5", and he left my rugby team with him. And I was like, this guy's not a gentleman. We are carrying this giant narcoleptic man through the streets of Seoul. What a horrible person. He's so rude. I hate him. And then we ended up dating, as you do.
Sounds like middle school kids or something like that.
Yeah, so, pretty much.
I love it. Yep. That's awesome. Now look at you guys now. So what's the dynamic now versus, is it about the same when you guys first started dating, or?
Well, I will say in terms of at least jiu-jitsu, he does not go so easy on me anymore. So I don't know if I should take that as a compliment or not. I'm going to just assume it's because I'm getting better. I think it's very much the same. I will say, like, consistently throughout our relationship, it's always been, we laugh a lot. We have a lot of fun. We train together. We go on these crazy diets together and then decide we hate them together. It's kind of just been, it's been 6 like really, really good years of really, really good memories, jiu-jitsu vacations, lots of jiu-jitsu. I think jiu-jitsu has been a really like centered point of our relationship. So much so that when we announced the pregnancy, it was using a jiu-jitsu gi. I'm like writing on my stomach, like opening the gi and writing on my stomach, we're expecting kind of thing. And his first baby pictures were in a gi. So jiu-jitsu is definitely a very central part of our relationship.
Nice. How did he propose to you?
We were on a hike. Actually, it's kind of funny. We were on a hike, and anyone who knows Mike knows that Mike is a very quiet person. So he doesn't talk extra. He's never kind of excessive. And he starts kind of giving me this little speech and talking about how long we've been together and all the things we've been through. And I'm thinking, oh no, something terrible must have happened. He's talking. What's going on? Which is just me and kind of how my brain works. And I was like, oh wait, no, actually he's proposing. It was very sweet. It's just funny because he's a very quiet person. So I kind of was like, well, if he's giving a speech, something must be going on. Yeah.
That's yeah. It's like this is not him. Something's going on. That's awesome. It's funny. It's like, I know what's going on. That's awesome. So congrats to you guys. Is Mike still at Travis, or did he start his own place permanently?
He still trains under Travis, but he started his own place, which is under Travis. Basically, it's Torres Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So That's located in Tomball, Texas, but it's a Team Took affiliate. So.
Okay, nice. That's awesome. Now, as far as we have a Poku comment as far as handsome boy. Love the pictures on that. So how has it been for you as far as during quarantine time as a mama and of course, Mike being a business owner, helping running the operations and so forth? Tell us about that.
I think like when I kept seeing the news say this is an unprecedented time, I was like, man, that's their favorite word. But then I thought about it, I was like, well, it really is. Like no one has anything to compare it to. It is so interesting having a newborn during a pandemic. Especially because you kind of, when you're a new mom, I know you have to sort of isolate anyway. So I think he's probably met significantly less of my teammates than he would have met anyway. And everyone's kind of worried about the baby. And then I spoke with my doctor and she was like, I'm actually not worried about the baby. I'm more worried about other people who are older that might be immune compromised, keep that baby away from them sort of thing. It's been bizarre. I know it's been rough on a lot of businesses here. I think we're very fortunate that we have a lot of members that support us and that it's really important for them to have a gym to go back to train at. Like you, of course you lose some memberships and things like that, but our team is very much a family and they were so supportive. And I think we've been very fortunate in that we weren't a massive gym anyway. We didn't have a huge overhead like some other gyms have. And it's just been really sad to see some of these gyms that have been around forever closing down. And I don't think anybody predicted that it was going to last this long. I don't think anybody expected this. It's just kind of honestly, it's just kind of day to day. And then one morning you wake up and you're like, oh, we've been doing this for 10 weeks or however many weeks it is. It's, you kind of get lost in it a little bit. So we just started trying to train a little bit every day, generating more digital content, which I actually think is a huge positive of this. And I do think it's one of the positives that we're going to take away from this is that they're saying next year there are going to be long periods of time where potentially kids won't be able to be in school. Schools are readjusting now for kind of a pandemic schedule. People are being forced to generate content. So people are training at home. You're kind of getting like free private lessons and free training from some really, really good technical practitioners. And I think it's going to change our outlook on how we put out content and how we kind of train. I think it allows people who can't always be in classes to be there. And I do hope that even after we're kind of training in person, I hope that some of these gyms kind of keep the sort of live classes and things like that. Cause I think it's going to be more inclusive actually.
So. Yeah, I think that's what I'm seeing as far as, a silver lining of, being able to push virtual online training and figure out how to be creative in delivering the content is another skill set the students and teachers learning from each other. So, that's something I'm learning myself along the way. But that's definitely, I would suggest anyone that's within this type of industry of business to definitely push out online content for sure. Definitely. On that. That's another streamline and revenue there, or another way to connect. So what other things what are the teaching moments or life lessons have you been learning within the quarantine?
Oh, so many actually. I think it's kind of the most important thing that I've learned is just to kind of quiet my brain. Jiu-Jitsu normally does that for me. I am a very anxious person, which most people probably wouldn't know. I'm what's considered high functioning anxiety. So I do things, I've finished 2 master's degrees. I've been relatively successful in things, but I am very, very anxious. And so Jiu-Jitsu is kind of a huge outlet there, and I don't necessarily have that. So I'm sort of learning kind of just some ways to kind of calm myself and quiet my brain, whether that's like turning off the news every once in a while and just not watching the latest developments about coronavirus, because it gets really, really easy to get obsessed with that. And I think it's super important to be informed. I'm definitely not one of those people who's sharing that crazy conspiracy theory thing online, which I can't, it's driving me crazy, but just kind of learning to be like quiet and calm. And honestly, to get outside more. I've been spending more time with my dog. I've been going on walks. I've started seeing things differently. It's nice to see families outside together. Like I used to see that a lot when I was a kid, but you don't really see it as much anymore. You don't see people having picnics, and it's especially not here, maybe because it's pretty hot in Texas, but not so often here. And now I'm seeing all these people just taking these little moments that they probably wouldn't have otherwise. And it's kind of nice. Like at first I felt a little bit cheated. I thought, oh, Cairo's not gonna have all these memories that all these babies had at first of going to the aquarium and doing whatever. And I thought about it, I was like, babies don't remember that. Like that's not the thing. So it's kind of to not worry so much about, to try to not worry so much about things, to take a second for myself, to read a book, to watch something, to go for a walk, to spend time with my dog, who is super grateful and is going to be really sad when I go back to work, to spend time with
Yes, I agree with all those for sure. We have, hopefully I'm saying it right, Gianna Polk. She says agreed for sure. Thank you for tuning in. We have Opoku. He had a couple of questions. You're such a travel bug. Where are you heading next?
This question makes me so sad because I don't really know. We were actually headed back to South Korea in July. And South Korea has done a great job of containing coronavirus. South Korea is one of the most efficient countries in the world, so that's not surprising. But we obviously won't be heading back now with the newborn, but we were kind of going to go back to the place where we met. We were going to introduce Cairo to all the people that we knew there. We were pretty excited about it. And so now it's kind of up in the air. The funny thing is the other place that I was considering going, I was like, I'm going to take Cairo on his first big trip when he's a newborn because they're easier to travel with, was Italy. Not doing that anytime soon. So we've kind of been planning it around the Rugby World Cup. We've been looking at, well, I've been planning around the Rugby World Cup. Mike is a little less than enthused about that, but he's very agreeable. So we've been looking at one of the next ones is in, the next huge rugby tournament is in South Africa, and not really till 2021. So we've got some time. We were thinking like that might be a good trip for Cairo. He would be a little bit older, be able to see some things. France has the Rugby World Cup coming up in a few years. So those are the next big trips I'm planning. But for now, just like kind of some little trips around here. We want to go to Austin. We want to go on a hike. I'm going to try and focus on some more things locally because you're right. I do have a travel bug and I'm kind of going crazy. This is the longest I've probably been in the country at one time. I don't know what to do with myself.
Might start doing some virtual travel.
Yeah, that's been amazing. That's been the coolest part of all this. I saw a whole bunch of museums all over the world are giving like free passes so people can go. National Geographic is doing this explorer kind of thing where you can like go explore wonders of the world. It's pretty amazing that you could travel without leaving your living room. So
first, I haven't tapped into that yet, but there's not. I haven't seen anything yet that intrigues me yet to tap into that. But yeah, I've seen it pop around for sure. For the people that I assume you teach jiu-jitsu, correct?
I do now.
No? Okay. Yeah. So within your student and also teaching experience, what is something that's helped you learn jiu-jitsu to grasp jiu-jitsu as a whole?
I actually think learning to grasp jiu-jitsu as a whole came from working in I'm an English teacher too. So in my classroom, I have students of all different backgrounds, skill levels, ability levels. It has been about like the game changer for me has been adaptation. Not everybody can do everything the exact same way, but everybody can find a way to do something. So it's been learning how to adjust things and adapt things. I was very, very anxious about teaching jiu-jitsu. I've been teaching in a classroom for 10 years, so that I was very used to. And then recently my fiance was like, do you want to do a women's class? Do you want to teach this? I've just started doing private lessons, and it's actually kind of intimidating. You sometimes think like, well, why would anybody want to learn anything from me? What do I have to say that's particularly interesting? But I've kind of learned that everybody has something that they're good at. Everybody has something that they can teach. And I've learned, the most important thing I've learned is how to adapt that for different people, for different bodies, for different ability levels. I think being able to adapt is probably one of the most important skills you can have in jiu-jitsu and in the classroom.
That's excellent point on that. Now we have recommendations. Do you have any book recommendations?
Ooh. Oh God, there are a ton. So many. The one that has kind of stuck with me, the one that's been really good, and it also applies to Jiu-Jitsu, even though it's a rugby book. It's called Legacy by James Kerr, and it is a book about principles of leadership that he learned from the All Blacks rugby team, which sounds like it would be ridiculous, but it's by far the best book I've read about leadership. He talks about how the teams that are most successful, even their super high level athletes, are the same people who are going to go out and sweep the sheds after the game. And I thought about it and I'm like, well, that really applies to jiu-jitsu as well. Never be too big to clean the mats. Never be too big to help somebody out. Never be too big to assist a white belt, to show somebody how to do something. I think we get lost in rank. And I think sometimes people are like, oh, well, I'm a black belt, I'm a brown belt, I'm a purple belt, I'm a whatever. I'm not going to do that. That's for the white belts. But that was really important. It was talking about, in terms of leadership, that obviously you lead by example, but you do that by creating an environment where you're showing people your expectations, and that kind of gets passed down. And I think that's very accurate for jiu-jitsu. I think if you want to see a good school, you look at how many white belts they have. Because if a school can't keep white belts, that tells me you're doing something wrong. White belts are important to your structure. So if you've got all upper belts, great, but where are your white belts and why don't you have them? And that's
a great point.
Yeah.
Excellent point. What would you say? Well, actually, before I'm gonna back up, I've tried rugby once. And I don't know, it's hardcore. I can tell you that. I was like, I'm gonna get injured doing this thing there's no pads, there's no helmets. It's like football without any padding and helmets. I'm like, what in the world? And then you get to kick the ball. So I don't know. It was just like all confusing. I was like, I'm gonna get hurt. This is like hardcore out here. So kudos to you being able to compete in that and train in that. So what would you say is like the hardest thing you had to overcome in life? You might have mentioned it, but maybe, yeah.
Few things. So on a personal level, every day, I think it is self-doubt. I think people who appear to be the most confident often aren't. And I think that is very much to do with anxiety. I think for me, it's consistently telling myself that I am good enough to do things, that I'm worthy of doing things. I think we spend a lot of time being told like not to be too proud of something, not to be too good, especially if you're a woman. I think you're told that really regularly. Oh, it's very unattractive if women are too confident. I think that's why Ronda Rousey wasn't received well, but I think she knew her worth. And I think if she had been a man, it wouldn't be a big deal. This is why we've got everyone loving Conor McGregor, hating Ronda Rousey. I think it's a cultural thing. So it's kind of overcoming that idea that you have to be like meek in your achievements and things. I think you should be loud in your achievements. So that's been a huge thing for me. And then obviously just like for me, very much the loss of my dad. He was a really big part of my life. So I think those are probably two kind of consistent things throughout my life.
Gotcha. And then you also, I kind of took a glance of, you have a blog, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And it mentioned somewhere you were sexually assaulted. Is that true?
Yeah, that's actually a big part of me sticking with jiu-jitsu. Initially, when my training partner had kind of suggested it to me, and she was like, "Oh, you're right, you'd be really bad at it." I was like, "Oh, well, now I've got to try it." But I think I would get to even though it was something that happened a long time ago, I would get to particular positions and I was like, this is so uncomfortable. I don't want to be here. You don't want to be mounted. You don't like the idea of people holding your wrist, of having to escape from a much larger opponent. When I first started, I was actually talking to a therapist at the time, and he said, one of the things that they were kind of telling me about was sort of a slow exposure to things that make you uncomfortable. And there's this kind of connection with your body that reframes the way that you feel when you're in certain positions. So for me, now I've been training long enough that if I'm like mounted, okay, I'm just going to escape from here, unless it's a like fellow heavyweight, and then I'm kind of stuck for a little bit. But for the most part, like it just sort of reframed the way that I saw my body, the way that I was able to kind of protect myself. I think the best thing about all of this as a sexual assault survivor is that I am that's the one area of my life where I have a ton of confidence now. Not that I would like anyone to attack me, but if they did, I think it would be a challenge now. And I feel very comfortable kind of defending myself. It sort of gives you back a little bit of your life. And I think jujitsu, people say all the time, jujitsu saved my life, but I think that's the case. I think that I would probably not be the person that I am now with jujitsu. I wouldn't be so confident. I wouldn't feel comfortable being in certain social situations. I might not be comfortable training with men, being around men. It's just reframed everything for me. I feel confident in my ability to defend myself.
What would you say for someone who has struggled, experienced sexual assault and struggled with it, and how would you suggest them to be able to break through, just slowly getting out of that, as far as just the anxiety, the traumatic experience? What would the process or steps be in your mind, or how have you taken it?
I think it's different for every person, but I think the important part is to start slowly. But I also think the most important part is to have people that you trust 100%. Because if you do not trust the people that you're working with, I don't think you're going to be successful. I had very good people around me. I had people around me who would just say, hey, breathe. I had training partners who could recognize when I was having like a moment, and they would say, hey, you're okay. Just breathe, or just tap and you can get out of it. For me, that was very powerful. Like, some people don't want to tap and they don't want to do anything. For me, knowing, hey, you can tap and you can get out of this and you can start over, that was super powerful. So I can't speak for each person individually because I know it's different, but what I would say is start slow, find people that you trust. And if there's some people do well with kind of being exposed to, slowly exposed to things that trigger them. Some people do not. So if you're one of those people who does not, start with your strengths, start by passing, start with the areas where you're comfortable until you can go back and kind of adjust. I had a coach who used to say all the time, get comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's been the biggest lesson that I've taken from all of this, is just to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And the easiest way to do that is to find people that you trust to train with.
That's very good, wise words. We have Kane on. She is actually, I think, from Australia, so it's like midnight hours over there. She's tuning in. So yeah, thank you for sharing. Appreciate the kind words on that. And Apoku says you're one of the strongest women I know for sure. Excellent. and he's I'm gonna. This is going to be your last question, Apoku, because we didn't start winding down. What's the story behind your tattoos?
Which one?
Or tattoo?
Wow.
Okay. Well, I guess whatever the biggest story. Pick one.
There are so many. I have one that's kind of it's a tomoko. It's a large like leg turtle, and turtles obviously have a lot to do with travel and kind of navigation. It's ironic because when I got it, I was still terrified of the water, so it's really funny that I have it. Everybody was like, "Oh, you must love the water," and I'm like, "No, I'm terrified that there's going to be sharks in a river. Even I'm that irrational." So that's huge, and I think it's probably. I think he's talking about my arm. Hold on, let's see if I can. This one was done by a friend of mine, Muddy, and it was kind of just to honor my family. It's got different like sections of it. It's got like 5 little footprints that represented at the time some of my immediate family members. It was just kind of a reminder that no matter where I am, they're with me. And I've spent a lot of time traveling or not being at home, which is Madison, Wisconsin. So when I look at it, it was sort of kind of like we were all there together. So it's just a reminder of all my family.
Cool. Do you have any hidden talents?
I can always burn eggs. That seems to be. I don't know if they're hidden. I love to sing. That's kind of probably if I'm not teaching, or I'm not watching rugby, or I'm not doing jiu-jitsu, I'm probably singing or writing. I can calm babies really, really well because they like to play with my hair. So that's fun. I've learned that I've become the baby whisperer as long as my hair is down, because they become really intrigued by these like
That's awesome.
Do you have any surprising talents? Maybe I just haven't discovered them yet.
That's cool. So I'm glad you actually said singing, because I want you to, if there's a song you would like to sing out on, we would like to hear it. No, don't put you on the spot. Remember when you said being comfortable with the uncomfortable? No, only if you're okay with that. If not, we can always dance out.
I can't think of anything good.
It's okay. Well, one more question. What would you say is a positive message, mantra, or a quote that you like to leave with others today?
Okay, I know exactly what that is. This is something I do before every single rugby match I've ever had, before every jiu-jitsu game I've ever had, or jiu-jitsu match, or any type of adversity. Anyone who knows me knows I'm obsessed with Nelson Mandela. And his favorite poem was a poem by William Ernest Henley called Invictus. So it is, out of the night that covers me, black as a pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. That's my favorite poem.
Wow, that's amazing that you know that by heart. That definitely gives me chills in the feel from there. Excellent. So we're gonna dance out, and since and if you want to sing it too, that's fine. But we're gonna do this little bit of. All right, let me thumbs up if you can hear this, because if you start talking, it'll blur in and out. Okay.
Oh yes, that's my jam. I love it.
You ready?
All right, got it.
Everyone else can join if you want.
Oh yeah.
All right, stop. Collaborate and listen. I sit back with my brand new invention. Something grabs a hold of me tightly.
Whoa! Love it. Who knows the words?
Everyone knows. I just won't admit it.
Awesome. All right. So I appreciate it. Love that poem. Appreciate you jamming up with us at the end. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on. May you be blessed with your family and your business, and also what's your blog on where they can find you?
So my blog is maggiemoo.jiu-jitsu.com, and then
Okay.
the Instagram is just Maggie Moo BJJ.
That way I can plug that.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Oh, so sorry, I'm losing you. But yeah, just message me those the link information, and I'll post it in there. And then that way, if anyone wants to reach out to Maggie, I'm sure she's able to help you in any way. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Yes, this was fun. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone. You all have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.